So officially, good afternoon. Welcome to our afternoon session, and thank you so much for joining us today for the Ride to Provide virtual challenge. It is my absolute pleasure to host this webinar on the third day of riding. And for those that don't know me, my name is Emma, and I am the events manager here at Hands Across the Water. So we're going to assume that you are on your bike, you have your water bottle ready, and you are pedaling away, just like you can see Scott pedaling away. Or you may not be able to see him just yet, but you will in a moment. Don't worry about that. I will switch the video for you. Or you might be running, or you might be walking, or you might be kayaking. I don't know. But whatever you're doing, thank you for joining us today. As we've mentioned previously, the distance you travel during these sessions, of course, is going to vary according to the pace that you're at. If you've got an odometer, you can log those Ks, exact Ks into My Virtual Mission at the end of your session. But if you don't have one, we of course are setting this as a bit of an average for you at 25 kilometers for this 45-minute session. So the most important thing is you're on the bike and you're supporting the kids, and for that we are so thankful. So today we are on day 2 of the actual ride in Thailand, day 2, stage 1. And we're going to be traveling from Hua Hin. You'll be able to see on the video shortly when that starts. Today I'm joined by Scott Stein and Tiffany Winchester, who are going to be having a chat during this session, and they're going to keep you engaged while you punch out those kilometers. Here we go. Here comes the footage. You're already pedaling, so it doesn't matter. Just keep going. All right, there we go. So let me tell you a little bit about Scott before I hand over to him, and he will take it away. So Scott has worked with thousands of leaders around the world, helping them to become better leaders by fast tracking their thinking and their approach with their people. Scott is a highly sought after international speaker and mentor who has worked with a range of global and Australian businesses. He has a master's degree in communications and taught communication and public speaking at Central Michigan University. He's also the author of 4 books, his most recent titled Leadership Hacks, that aims to equip leaders with effective and fast-track strategies to boost impact and results as a leader. And Scott has also founded the Hands Across the Water board with Peter Baines, and he's been on all but one of the Hands rides. In fact, we were chatting yesterday, and he's been on so many rides, he couldn't remember the actual number. And he did lead one of those rides through the 10-year anniversary of Hands, and in a minute you will see he's also doing the virtual challenge with you, and he's on the bike. So now I'm going to hand over to Scott, who will introduce Tiffany, and they will take it from there, and I'll be back at the end. So Scott, over to you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Emma. Hello, everyone. And for everybody in Thailand, all the kids at the home, Sawadee Krap, welcome. It's great to have everybody here. Great to have everybody along. And I'm actually quite excited because we got a really, really cool adventure woman that I'm going to be interviewing today. Her name is Tiffany Winchester, but we're going to call her Tiffo, right? Because that's kind of what everybody calls her. She's kind of cool. What do I mean by that? She has a PhD, so that means she's really smart, really intelligent. She actually got involved with flipping the classroom and some virtual things with uni as well. She's an adjunct faculty member at the Copenhagen Business School, which is pretty prestigious as well. But really, when we talk to her, she's going to tell you it's a bit of fun as well. On top of that, she's also married. She's got 2 cool kids in their early teens, and kind of tapping her brain, endurance cyclist, which is pretty cool. So welcome.
Sorry, we've got a bit of lag here, so it's like, ooh, you really slowed down.
We got people in Thailand. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, I just want to start with this. Tell us what an ultimate endurance cyclist does.
I do a lot of stupid things on the bike. That's probably the easiest way to look at it. No, ultra endurance cycling is kind of defined as any ride that lasts for 6 hours or longer at a time. So it's usually about, you know, like 160 Ks or I think it's 100 miles roughly, that's sort of a normal a normal pace that you would ride. So for me, that's, yeah, that would be a sort of a normal ride for me. And then a little yeah.
Massive. So for those of you that have done our rides in Thailand, you know, usually our average day is about 100K. So when we've finished, you're still going.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the rides that you've done, and so we can actually understand it a little bit more.
Well, I started, you know, at 25K. So I remember my first bike ride, which was my husband actually started talking me into getting on the bike. And my first ride was, I think 17Ks long, and I thought I was going to die. So, you know, I didn't start off as this ultra endurance crazy person. I started off with someone that could hardly ride around the block. So yeah, I have been at that very like tough level of getting started where everything hurts and it's really difficult. So I remember what those are like. But yeah, my last couple of big events that I rode, I did one last year that was just over 1,200 Ks. I've done 3 rides that were that distance, and we cover that distance in about 3.5 days long.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that I do.
Super fast.
Not super fast.
That's old people. That's super. Takes it 3.5 days.
It's a long day on the bike. Yeah, we don't rest a lot, we don't sleep a lot, and we don't stop a lot. So it's just consistent riding for a long period of time. Yeah.
And what got you into it, Tiff? What was it that kind of inspired you to go, all right, I'm gonna do this?
I have people that I hang out with that have been called my enablers. So friends of mine that have gone, why don't you try this? And I've gone, okay, and just sort of said yes when opportunities came up. So you know, the first I was doing a bit of bike racing when I first got into it, and then someone gave me this, like, why don't you try this, you know, challenge down in Tasmania? And I went, okay, so signed up for it, and then trained and did that, and then it's just sort of led on from there. So it wasn't really anything necessarily that inspired me to try it. It was just, I think, a willingness to say yes and see if what I could do was even possible.
Which is fascinating, because it sounds like you've done quite a bit. Hey, a question for you. I'm curious, your mindset. What do you do before? Like when you're leading up, I'm sure you've got a training routine, and I'm curious to hear about that. But I'm also curious about what do you do to get your mindset ready for an event like that? Because we've got a lot of people that want to join hands, and they may not have done the ride in Thailand, and for them, 800K over 8 days is a lot, or 500K in 5 days is a lot. What did you do to help get your mindset so you could actually go, yep, I can do this?
That's actually a really good question. And it's funny because I've got a really good friend of mine and we are looking at doing a course development on how to sort of do some of the stuff that we do. And one of the first things that we have come up with that was consistent with both of us is we find our why. Finding your why is probably a big thing. And it doesn't have to be like, I mean, for you guys, the why that you're doing with this hands across the water thing is outstanding. And it's probably like a lot more of a beautiful why than usually me going, I'm just going to see if I can do something stupid. But finding a reason why you want to do stuff and then being really consistent with that goal has been, that's probably one of it. Other mindset stuff is I tend to get myself into this step that I am going to do it, and I'm always looking towards the end goal. Like, I know things are going to be tough. I know there are going to be times where I'm very, very much not wanting to be on the bike, and that things are going to be mentally and physically very challenging. But again, I think for me, that's part of the reason why I do it, is to kind of push through those challenges. So yeah, finding your reason why you're doing things, and then mentally looking at, you know, sort of where you're going and how you're going to get there. And having like a lot of like anxiety and panic attacks in the meantime as I question my life choices is also seems to be part of my, you know, getting ready for these events.
And it sounds like you like a little bit of pain as well in the process.
Apparently, yeah, I can cope with quite a lot of, I have the ability to push through quite a bit of pain. It's not the best way to, you know, it's not like an ideal ride, but yeah, I can cope with quite a lot of.
And again, you're a adjunct professor. You do some lecturing here in Australia. You do some in Copenhagen. Sounds like you got this awesome lifestyle with your husband and your kids. How do you juggle that? Like when you're in your training before the event, It sounds like you have a lot of balls in the air. How do you do that? Because a lot of people are going, how do I manage my kids and my relationship and my work?
Yeah, lots of people go, how do you find the balance? And the easiest question is, when I'm training for an event, I do not have balance in my life. There are definitely things that will take a back seat during a big training block, or even when I was training for, so PBP, which was Paris Breast Press, which is the big international event I did last year. My husband and I sat down, and it was basically a 1-year buy-in for both of us to go, we're going to take about a year and everything is going to be focused on your training. So I think getting buy-in from the people that are around you, getting that everyone is on the same page and we're all dedicated towards this goal is really important, because there is no balance. Things will take a backseat. Yeah, absolutely. But it's, it's carving out time where you can, not coming up with excuses as to why you're doing things, or coming up with the excuses and then going, I'm still going to get up. So I used to get up at 4:45 a.m. and be on the bike by 5, and then do my training blocks in the morning. Or things, if I had a really long ride booked, and it was the summertime, I would actually be on the bike at 5 a.m. so that I could be home by early afternoon, so I could spend the afternoon with my family. So, making those kind of time sacrifices was really important. And when I was training for a lot of the big blocks, I had to take time off work. So I did have that kind of balance in my schedule where I had to deal with my boss that I would, be taking, 1 or 2 days midweek off the 6 weeks before an event, because I just needed the extra training block. Yeah.
And what about with the kids? How do you get the kids? Do you get the kids involved with the training at all? Or do you sit down and tell them, oh, I'll be here for this time, but not this time, but we're going to have fun with this? I'm always curious. Again, I've got 3 kids that I know of. And so I'm always curious about how we balance that with the kids.
I have kids. No, just awkward moment. No, with the kids, so they've seen me do these ultra things now for a few years. The first year that I did my first 1200 was really difficult in the family, because I basically didn't see them for about 3 months before an event, which was not ideal. It was really terrible. So when I signed up for my next 1200, again, it was very much sitting down. My kids are older, they're 12 and 13, sitting down with them and going, okay, so I'm getting ready to do this next block. This is what it's going to look like for you guys. This is how it's going to be the same as the last time I did a big training block. And this is how it's going to be different. And this is the balance I'm going to try to strike, to spend more time with you guys. It's interesting, because with the COVID-19 shenanigans, I've obviously been spending a lot of time inside. You can see sort of half of this is my rear wheel of my bike, because it's been on the indoor trainer now for 10 weeks. And I did plan a really long indoor bike ride here in my bedroom where my bike is, and had my kids on board, and they actually support crewed me for the whole day. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. When I did the Paris event, the kids were there, like them and Max, they kind of came to a couple of pit stops and cheered me on. So it is, they don't ride with me, we don't train together, but getting them involved in some capacity was, making them feel a part of it. Really good. And then apologizing for months afterwards and spending a lot of intense time with them to kind of
bribery, ice cream, all those good things that kids love as well.
Yeah, or just like I'll put my headphones in and close my eyes and pretend no one's here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, as Emma said, I've done the ride in Thailand pretty much every January for the last 12, 13 years. So that means I've been gone for 2 or 3 weeks without the family. But again, what I've noticed is my kids have gotten older. They've been curious now. And we did a couple little rides here in Sydney as well. In fact, my eldest, my 18-year-old Jasmine, did the ride in Thailand the year before last with myself.
Cool.
That was pretty special. Again, when they get older, they kind of go, I want to do some of that, which is kind of inspiring at the same time.
Yeah, my daughter's, her present to herself a couple of years ago was a road bike, and I just went, whoa.
Yeah, that's
She's like, I want to do what you do. I'm like, you really don't. You really do.
Which brings me a little bit of a segue. So tell me about when you are in the thick of the battle, the race. What do you do? What's your mindset? Do you have a game plan? Just curious, again, for us that aren't ultra endurance athletes, what do you do when you're actually in the moment to kind of push through some of those hard times?
I have a lot of different strategies that I use, kind of depending on how things are going. The biggest one for me is I laugh a lot. one of the things about the old, and it sounds like it would be the opposite of a really fun time on the bike. But I surround myself with people that have the same positive mentality that I do on the bike. And we spend that time together kind of making jokes and laughing and trying to keep our spirits up. So I did a big one in a big training ride that was like 1,000K 3-day event. And the way I wrote it up when I did my blog later was it with 1,000 Ks of dad jokes, because all we did was tell jokes and tell stories. I think about food like probably a lot more than normal people do. I think about eating quite a lot. So yeah, I try to keep positive as much as I possibly can. And distract myself. Lots of distraction techniques, whether it's, like I take a lot of photos when I'm on the bike. Sometimes I write my blog in my head as I'm kind of going through scenarios and going, how will I make what's happening right now, whether it's really difficult or really interesting. I mean, I've had rides where it's been 9 hours of solid rain in my face and gone, how can I write this up so that it sounds like an interesting experience and something that, like that I might want to do again. So yeah, just being, for me, trying to stay focused and know that times will be tough. It will get to the point where it sucks, like quite a lot. But knowing that if I keep riding, it will get better. Like it always gets better. Sometimes it gets worse first, but it always, like things will change. So it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 3 hours. But eventually I kind of come out of it and yeah, so just keep.
And do you guys, again, as you can tell, I'm not completely an ultimate endurance athlete, maybe
You look like an endurance athlete. We are not spelt figures. I have a lot of food in my body.
But it's interesting because the thing I always wonder is, do you have kind of conversations with other people? Because at the rides in Thailand we have, usually you're doing a series of 25K legs and then you got a water stop. And usually what I find is the conversations I have in between those stops are always with different people, and they're always quite unique and amazing. Do you find that as well on the endurance side? Are there certain times where you just click with some cool people?
Yeah, absolutely. So that 1,000 Ks of dad jokes ride were people that I had ridden hundreds of kilometers with before, that we found that we have the same, we have got great stories that we like to tell and we like to listen to each other. And yeah, the kinds of discussions I've had. I've got one mate of mine that likes to do, you're probably going to want to sit down for this one, but he likes to do 600s and he likes to do them all at once. So we would start riding at like 6 a.m. and finish the next day by late lunchtime.
So like over 24 hours, just still going nonstop.
Yeah. So, I mean, we stop probably every 2 to 3 hours is our mentality. Stop, eat, get off the bike, get some water, go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to do, get on the bike, keep going.
And what do you eat? What do you eat? Because I saw somewhere on a post when I was stalking you that you're a donut queen or something like that.
I like donuts a lot. Yeah. I don't think that my blog can be labeled as like, this is what athletes eat. But yeah, I eat a lot of real food. So I don't particularly do gels. I have some like Cliff Bars. You can see them kind of in the back corner here. I have boxes of Cliff Bars. But again, I only eat them if I can't get to somewhere in between. I eat at bakeries a lot. I eat a lot of bakery food.
What's your favorite bakery food? Just so we're, what's your favorite bakery food? Come on, be honest.
Other than donuts?
Yeah. All right. Donuts work.
I love donuts. Donuts are, they're so good. And it's kind of that, like, you look forward to it. So I'm like, I'm going to go to the bakery and I'm going to have a donut today because I rode my bike, this distance. So it does become kind of this like little, reward thing. But yeah, bakeries, we eat it a lot. We eat at a lot of service stations because we've got, in Australia, we've got a lot of food at those kinds of servos. So, hot chips and gravies or sandwiches, or, I eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of vegetarian food, a lot of carbs. Basically, like, I can down an entire pizza by the end of a ride. I talk and I think about food a lot. I don't know if I've
I just had this image of you, Tiffa, with your helmet, just a little rod coming out, and hanging in front of you is this donut, right? So you're constantly trying to reach it, which is a bit of fun.
Yeah, the best thing is I know when it is. It's like, it's there, it's at that service station. I know I have so many kilometers before I get to that point, and then I get to eat again. So yeah, but real food. We eat lots of real food. So, you know, you kind of get like a sense of what your body can cope with and what it doesn't like to eat. So I know what foods I don't like eating when I'm on a big ride. But other than that, it's just kind of listening to what my body wants and going, okay, so we're now going to eat 4 donuts and that's okay.
Right. And do you normally stick with the foods that you know of or are aware of? Because again, sometimes in Thailand, we'll stop somewhere and there's a little stand on the side. I'm actually quite brave, so I'll give it a go. Sometimes I have to use the loo quicker than others. But what about you? You know, are you pretty regimented, or are you try anything?
Yeah, I'll try anything. Like you know, there's a lot of training rides that would go in before I would do a long event. So it's, you know, trying different things on training rides and going, oh, I wonder how my body would cope with that. Or, you know, like things like I know that I can't drink, although I love coffee. I need to not drink tons and tons of coffee on a ride, because then of course you have to go to the toilet, or, you know, your heart rate gets elevated and then you're all like jittery. And I'm like, I can't put that much, you know, you really don't want to be spiking your energy levels. Yeah, but yeah, like I experiment, like I went to France and I rode all the way through France and I'm like, I ate whatever was at the pit stops. I ate a lot of baguettes.
All right. What was your favorite food in France?
Oh, like while I was riding or when I was not riding?
Both. Always curious.
Well, I've been to France quite a bit. We lived in England for 6 years and I taught down in France. A friend of mine at university. I did some teaching down there. So we, you know, spent quite a little time down there. Pretty much anything with cheese is my go-to in France. It's like raclette, anything with like cream, heavy cream, butter, and cheese. I'm like, I am so down with this.
Hence the reason why you have to do so much cycling, right? You know, the cheese.
Yeah, there seems to be a correlation between the amount of food I love to eat and how many Ks I need to ride so that I can like not have to roll myself out the door. But yeah, on the big 1200, they had a lot of pit stops set up for us, and there was a lot of baguettes. So I ate like, you know, like the long breadsticks shoved with butter and cheese. I ate a ton of those. I used to put them in the back of my cycling jersey. So I'd have these like baguettes down the back of my jersey and I just sort of pull them out and nibble them off on the bike and shove them back in the back. But yeah, I ate a lot of pasta, a lot of rice, fruit pudding, cheese, because I like cheese. Yeah. So.
And what about strategy? Like, I'd imagine that there's lots of different strategies that you could have when you're going to do an endurance event. Just curious, your thoughts. What kind of strategy do you use?
Strategies in terms of?
When you're like, how are you going to ride? Do you have a particular strategy to go, I'm going to go out hard, or I'm going to go slow and then I'm going to work up to it? Or this route is hilly, I'm strong on the hills, I might go harder there. Do you have any particular strategy that you use when you're?
I do. The guys that I ride with always give me a hard time because I love spreadsheets. So before every long ride that we do, I usually have some sort of like massive spreadsheet that I've put together that says the distance between each stop, where we're going to stop, how many Ks between each food stop. So I know how much food I need to carry on me and how much I'm going to be able to get on the ride. Roughly like the elevation for each thing, how long I think it's going to take us, how fast we could do those. And then of course, by about like 9 hours into the ride, the spreadsheet goes out the window. But part of my strategy is actually making those and having that mental plan going, this is what's going to happen, and getting the hang of it. So I know now when it gets to the evening and it starts getting darker, I start slowing down. Like my body just sort of slows down. It gets to the evening. And even though I start waking up because I'm a night owl, I love riding in the dark, my speed will drop. I'm not particularly fast through the hills, but if I've had a really, really flat ride, the second we start getting into the hills, I know my enthusiasm is going to perk up because it's going to be something different. So I'm not particularly great at climbing, but I love going downhill. So if there's downhills, I'm like, so in terms of like if I'm going to push it or not or whatever, I think the biggest thing with the longer stuff is when you're feeling good at the beginning or in the middle of a day, actually to not push harder.
Yeah, I think that would be the hard thing, to hold yourself back without going, oh, I'm going to go really quick.
I am very well known for going out like a shot the first 4 hours and then going, oh crap. I'm terrible. I'm a really, really good like 200K rider because I can push for about that particular time. And then it's like, pff. So yeah, actually the strategy is more when that I need to not push. And I need to take it really easy at the beginning to kind of eke my energy levels out for such a long period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how many tires have you changed? I'm always curious.
I used to change a lot until I found a tire that works for me. So these guys that I've got up on here, these guys are, I was going to say they're puncture proof, except the last ride I went on, I changed my tire 4 times. It was just really irritating. I had a loose wire that came out inside and basically punctured every tube that I put in. I was losing my mind. But yeah, on the long stuff, knock on wood, on the super long stuff, I tend not to have a lot of mechanicals or issues with my gear. Because it's been tested, and I make sure that if I'm going to go do a long one, I've got, you know, fairly new tires on. I know how many Ks I've put on them. These guys go for about between 6,000 and 8,000 Ks before I need to change them.
Oh, wow, that's great. It's funny. I used to be an adventure guide many years ago, and I led a trip, and it was through Europe, and we started in the UK, and we started with bikes. So I had 14 kids, myself as a lead guide and an assistant guide. We landed in Heathrow, put our bikes together. But we were just riding south, only going about 25 to 30K the first day. And we had 15 flat tires on the first day. And part of it was because we didn't actually get enough air out of the tubes with the flying and everything else, but talk about a drama. It's always a bit of a pain.
It slows you down, and the mentality of having to get off the bike and change it, put back on, it's like...
It was. And then it got worse because once we got in, the hostel was closed because we were late. We had pannier bags back then. This is in the old days. We stored our bikes, locked them all up, and somebody, as we were having dinner, cut through the locks and stole 2 bikes with all of the kids' clothes.
Oh, so, what is with people?
Yeah, so we turned it from a biking trip to a backpacking trip because we were going into North Africa. I'm not taking bikes there. So it's always kind of interesting, these different stories that come up. And I'm curious, I want to hear a couple of your stories of some interesting things you've had on the bike or in training.
Oh, yeah. I think, you know, it's funny when you talk about stories, and you were asking a question before about, you know, what are some of the things that I do to keep myself going? And we tell stories. We tell stories about, oh, you remember that one time that we did that thing? Oh, how good was that? And especially if you're riding with people that you've ridden with before, that you're like, okay, what story have I told you? If I've told you this one before, just please stop me now. But actually a lot of the stories that we retell are exactly that. That was those adventure stories when we got 15 flats in the first 25 Ks and everything went to shit and our bikes got stolen. And, you know, when things go wrong and horrifically bad, those are usually the best stories that we tell. So yeah, so those are kind of, I think for me, those are more of the fun ones. Most of mine involve the wind and weather because those are probably some of the most challenging things for me that I have to deal with. There was one that I was riding probably last year, and it was a nice time of year. I picked a fairly simple, it was a 400K ride. So those take, you know, like a good solid day and a half to ride a 400. But I was riding it with a buddy and we've done, you know, it was my first 400 that I was going to complete and we were all set to go. And you're watching the weather. So you become I'm quite a weather stalker. Along with my spreadsheets, I also look at the weather and I go, how bad could it be? Turns out. So yeah, we'd gone off and I'd ridden the first 100K leg. So it was an out and back and an out and back, a pretty simple 400, 100Ks, 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 100Ks. And I got to our first pit stop after 100 Ks and, you know, got my phone out of my pocket and checked it because I tend to turn it off when I'm riding. I don't need messages coming. You know, there's nothing that can't be dealt with that I could deal with on a bike. And I got this flood of messages from my husband going, please tell me you're okay. Are you okay? The storm is coming. There is this slew of messages about get under cover. The storm is coming. And we're like, what storm? And we looked outside and you could just see this black cloud going across. And we're like, oh, we're looking at the radar on our phones going, all right, so that looks a little bit dismal. But we were riding kind of here and we could see the storm doing this. We're like, all right, we're fine. We're going to duck underneath it. So out and back. And we're like, haha, we were the first 200 Ks. We're doing really good. And then we had to go this way. And my friend Thomas and I, so we're riding. And this is when I was GoProing a lot of the footage for a videographer friend of mine that wanted some videos of me riding. And we were riding out and you could see it was blue sky over here and it was blue sky over here and it was just black in front of us and we're going, oh no. as we rode into it, it was like walking, it was like into a wall, like one of those movies where they walk through the thing and the entire world changes.
Yeah.
It was like one of those. And we had hail bouncing in and out of our shoes because we were getting rained on so hard. So yeah, that was one of those like great, I cannot believe that we rode through the apocalypse on our bikes. That was so bad. But of course we're riding and I'm trying to like video this with my little GoPro that I was holding in my hand for my friend. And we were just killing ourselves laughing because we're like, what else are we going to do? Like, it is so bad right now. And I'm guessing you would have some pretty horrible weather stories from riding in Thailand with the rain.
Yeah, well, Thailand's not too bad. Like, you know, usually it's beautiful just about every day. It can get quite warm. And sometimes on the northern ride, it's a little bit cooler in January. And we've hit a couple of rainstorms, you know, but usually they come in maybe for an hour, maybe two, and then they leave.
Right.
Kind of. So do you ever get used to, there's this moment for anybody who's ridden before when you're in the rain and it's really raining, where you're still kind of dry until the water goes down the bum crack. Do you ever get used to that feeling when you're an endurance cyclist, or no? I'm just kind of
down my bum crack. You kind of get, well, I don't know if you get used to it, but you just go, it's fine. It's fine. I get repeated a lot while I'm riding. I'm like, it's fine. It'll be fine. I think the worst part is when you've got like a really long ride. So that 400 that we did, and we got absolutely pelted with rain. And then we sat and we had dinner. So him and I sat down and had this big pizza together and tried to dry out and couldn't dry out. And then we had to ride into the evening and it got dark and it got a bit colder and we're still wet. You're just going, I'm feeling like super uncomfortable right now. So I don't know if you get used to it, but you kind of work on mental strategies to kind of kick your mind out of I'm cold and I'm wet and I'm miserable and this could suck really bad to, all right, so let's think of some other things that we could think of that is not cold and wet and miserable and I'm sucking really bad. But yeah, you kind of, I don't get used to the wind. The wind has probably been one of my nemesis. I don't know if that's a plural for nemesis.
Yeah.
The wind and I are not necessarily mates, but it's definitely something that I'm not used to, but I'm getting better at mentally coping with.
And can you draft, when you're in an endurance cycling event, can you draft, like on the hand ride, we'll draft, not like racers, but just to give that little extra push. Can you do that in the endurance events or not really?
Yeah, you could. There's usually not enough of us to worry about. So I usually only ride with maybe one or two other people.
Yes.
So most of the time we're riding side by side because it's easier to talk that way. And yeah, I guess if someone's feeling like really tired, you kind of tuck them in behind and go, just sit on my wheel. But I tend to be the one, because I'm getting so much stronger in the wind, I tend to be the one that goes, all right, you sit on my wheel, I'll punch up front.
We like riding with people like you, Tiffo.
Yeah, I'm the wind puncher. My density works pretty well in wind storms, so I'm usually quite like, I'll just get in there and face that storm.
And the other thing, it's how long have you been doing the endurance athlete cycling? Because it's fairly recent, isn't it? It's not like all of your life.
No. My first really long ride was in 2017.
Right.
So
3 plus years.
3 bit years now. And it was one of those where the guys just went, why don't you try this? And I'm like, I don't think that's going to work out very well. And it didn't. Then learning to like how to make my longer rides work better for me. Yeah. So 2017.
What would you recommend? Because there's a lot of people in the hands community that may not have been on the bike for years. They might not have done the Thailand ride, and they're going, well, maybe I will. I'm not really sure. What recommendations would you give to people that have been kind of inactive that way, or that are considering doing something like that?
Start slow and don't compare yourself to other people.
Right.
Probably it's super easy. And I've done this even with myself when I've had to I went through a period where I decided I wasn't going to be an ultra endurance athlete and I was going to be a mountain bike racer. I don't know why. Just needed a break from the really long stuff. And I ended up crashing my bike so badly that I had to take 2 months off of the bike because I had blunt force trauma to my rib cage. And then coming back from that, I was super unfit. I was slow. Nothing was working. Like my saddle didn't feel right. My butt hurt all the time. Everything sucked. And I spent a lot of time going, I'm slow. This hurts. And other people are faster than me. I used to be fitter than this. Why am I not fit right now? And just feeling like it can be very hard. So taking it, I had to start basically from scratch. starting slow, knowing it'll come, and not going, I used to be that person and now I'm this person now. Like that person was the old me. I'm now rebuilding the new me again. So very much not going out there and thinking you're going to be a superhero, but building up. I mean, you are, but you just got to start, you know.
Do you still get sore? Like I won't be on the bike for a year and then it's, 800K in Thailand and really sore. So you still get sore even with your endurance things?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably not in the same spots as you would now, but you're building up that sort of those sit bones. It feels awful for the first while. It's like everyone's like, oh, I couldn't ride my bike because every time I get on it, it's sore. It's like, I love that you think that when I ride my bike, I'm not sore. Like eventually things start to hurt. It obviously takes me a lot longer before things hurt. And when I'm building up to events, a lot of it is building up that toughness in the saddle, regardless if it's like going from 5 minutes to an hour, or in my case, 5 hours to 3 days, it still gets sore.
Any strategies for the bum? Ride on sandpaper, wire brushes,
sandpaper,
toughen up for a saddle. Anything that you found that works?
Well, because of what I do, I have spent quite a bit of time and effort and money on getting things right. One of the first things that was recommended to me when I first started riding was after a few months, I got a bike fit. So I have a bike that's set up specifically for what I was doing. The first bike fits I had were when I was racing. So the bike fit was set up for like a very aggressive geometry so I could, really get in there and get aero. And then when I switched to endurance cycling, I didn't even realize that I needed to change the way that my bike was set up. So I rode my racing bike setup to an ultra event and literally thought that was going to end me. I have never been that sore ever. That was really bad. So setting things up properly on your bike for what you are going to do is very important. Everyone's got the basic things. So wear really good, I've got a really good chamois that works for me.
And getting the good ones too. That's what I found. In fact, the first ride in Thailand we did for hands, I had an old pair of riding nicks, probably about 10 years old, took them out, only brought those, and there was nothing left of them. So I did the first, it was terrible.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to be the most expensive ones. I have tried the most expensive ones, and I've tried ones that are like half that price, and they work for me. So finding something that works for you, but yeah, definitely, 5 minutes to go. Go. So, a good pair of shorts, because of the distances I ride, I use chamois cream. So stuff that's going to help with the chafing, is really important. But yeah, it's really just like, you don't sandpaper your butt. You build up, just like if you were swinging a hammer, the first time you do it, your hands are going to be super calloused and sore. And eventually all of those blisters will start hardening up and they'll get better. So it's kind of the same thing. You don't want to know where I've got calluses and
no.
But it's the same sort of concept as you just start,
ease into it.
But yeah, you're not going to go out there and go, oh, I've got this terrible pair of nicks that are 10 years old and I'm going to go out and ride 400 Ks and be in a lot of pain. So
yeah, and now for the Thailand rides, we actually get the kit for the riders. And it's really good kit, right? Because we've ridden in it a lot, and that makes it easy for them. We try to get it to them ahead of time as well, so they can just kind of get used to it. What about afterwards? Do you have any routines for after you've done one of these rides, or you just collapse in a heap?
Yes, and yes. A lot of stuff afterwards. I love being in water, like not swimming, but like some sort of like tub or hot tub, or getting myself immersed in water for a couple days afterwards is really important strategy for me. Being really kind to the fact that I'm going to be tired and sore. I'm not going to be super cognitive because of the intense mental load that it takes to focus for that long. So I tend to try not to I have done it, but I try not to go into a classroom and teach the day after I've finished a really long event, because I'm not exactly like the most articulate person in the world. But yeah, just listening to your body, knowing that you're probably going to need to refuel. It's going to take a while. And by a while, it could be between a week or it could be 3 or 4 months. It sort of depends on how much load you've put on it.
And what about massage? I know in Thailand, whenever we do a ride, we get to the resort that we're staying at, we jump in the pool, maybe have a few drinks, and most of us will go off for a $10 1 hour leg massage, which is amazing. Do you do the same? Like, do you get the massage and loosen things up?
I have a team of people that take care of my body. So I have a massage therapist who's I've worked with for years. I have an osteopath who is like a wizard, and I have a chiropractor that works on me as well. So I actually have quite a lot of people that work on me. And there's this amazing Vigorous Time massage place around the corner from my work. And they go to town on my feet with these big sticks, and I love it. That's absolutely part of my recovery strategy. But usually because of the physical pain that I've put myself in, I usually can't get a massage the day or two afterwards. I have to let my body kind of ease back into it.
Yeah, 2 minutes to go. Woohoo! Yeah. Well, which is funny because even on the screen, as you can see, pulling into the next stop, along the beach and the ride, it's just beautiful. And the road is nice now. I remember when we first started, sections of this road were dirt and potholes, and you'd be going like this, and so it's actually quite nice down. Have you done any riding in Thailand yet?
I haven't. I've been to Thailand. I came back via Thailand when I came back from Denmark a couple years back. Right. We had friends that were living there, so we went and stayed with them for a few days. So yeah, absolutely, it was great. It was very hot though. I'm from Canada. I'm good in the cold, and I'm pretty terrible in like the super hot. Right. But no, we had an absolute ball. It was fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful place to be.
And just because we're just about out of time, any final words of wisdom to all of the Hands community? Give us a couple of words of wisdom to help them remember some of the good things that you talked about.
Have fun, eat donuts. No.
Donuts. Yeah.
Tara's like, come ride with us. I'm like, oh, that would be amazing. I would love to do that. Words of wisdom is listen to your body, but also know that your brain is trying to be helpful and telling you to stop. And a lot of times I'm like, you know what, brain, thank you for being helpful, but I got this. We're going to be okay. Like, it's going to get better. We'll just keep taking it one pedal at a time, and eventually, it'll all come good. And if it doesn't, make a joke and eat some donuts, and everything's fine.
Well, I just remember, what is it? The Finding Nemo movie with Dory the other fish. Just keep swimming. Just keep pedaling.
Exactly. Yeah. Keep pedaling, but towards a bakery so you can get some food. So if all else fails, I don't make any decisions in terms of like stopping on any ride until I have sat down and had food, waited for 5 minutes, and then I will make that call. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, Tiffany, thank you. What a great pleasure to have you join sharing some insights. And I know that you're itching to get on your ride, so we won't take up any more of your time. But thank you so much for giving your time to Hands and sharing some of that wisdom.
No, thanks for having me. It was great to chat with you. It was good.
All right, we'll hand it back over to Emma.
Thanks, guys. That was amazing. Thank you so much for that awesome interview. And Scott, massive props for pedaling pretty much that entire time. You've done very well. Very well. I'm super impressed. So, guys, that's another leg done. Well done to everybody that was on the call today and getting your 25 kilometers done. Don't forget to jump on my virtual mission and log those kilometers. You don't want any cut missing off that tally that you've done. So make sure you jump on there. And also, if you're going to post any photos to your social media, make sure you tag Hands Across the Water. We would love to see them and also share them with our community as well. So just quickly, tomorrow morning, we're going to be joined by Michael Tomalaris again, and he's going to be interviewing Greg Wallace. And as you've now had a couple of days on the bike, and if you've done a ride in Thailand, you will know how challenging it can be. But imagine that Greg actually ran the 800 kilometers in Thailand. So he's going to tell us all about that. I can't wait to hear that story. But for now, that is it. Day 3 done. Congratulations, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Kapung kap.
Kapung kap.